So I've always had a very close relationship with my parents, and several years ago, about maybe 6 or 7 years ago, my dad, who had been very healthy up to that point, his health started to fade dramatically, and over the next few years he suffered with all kinds of things. He had heart attacks and various lung diseases, angina, cancer, fluid on the lungs, an aortic aneurysm, you name it, he had it. And so it was a difficult period of time for us. In early start of 2016, so nearly 5 years ago, he had a hernia problem and needed to have it operated on. And for most people that would be a very simple operation. But because of my dad's complex health issues and because he was on blood thinners for his heart, which stops the blood from coagulating, it meant that what should have been a very standard operation became a matter of life and death. And when he went in for the operation, the surgeon said that because he was on these blood thinners, they couldn't guarantee that when they operated, he wouldn't bleed out, and there was a very high chance that he would die on the table. So obviously that was pretty devastating. The surgeon said to us that they would have a haematologist ready, they would have a cardiologist ready, they would have blood ready, platelets ready for a transfusion, they would have a crash team ready, they would do everything they could, but that they explained the danger to my dad and said that he had to sign a document saying he understood that he might die, and and we had to say goodbye. And anyway, he went into the operation, and my mum and my brother and I went to the restaurant of the hospital. It was night. I remember it was night, and it was closed, and it was dark, and there was no one there. And we sat in the restaurant, trying to pass the time, making nice, being strong for each other, just talking platitudes and nonsense as you do when you're in a waiting room or waiting for someone to come out of surgery. And I remember just thinking, I can't be here. I need to pray. And so I sneaked off to the public toilets in the hospital, and I hid in this toilet cubicle, and I remember just sobbing and praying and saying, God, please just let him get through this, and just let the surgical team do the best job, and your will be done, and bring peace. And it was all real honest prayers, but they were superficial. They weren't really what was in my heart. It was just trying to pray for the right things. And I felt this overwhelming just emotion rise up in me, and I heard myself shout out, just don't let him bleed, just don't let him bleed. And I knew that it was a ridiculous prayer, because humans bleed when they're cut, and to my shame I stopped praying because I knew that this was impossible. So that's when I stopped praying, and I dried my eyes and came out of the toilet and joined my family. Well, we went back up to the ward, and we waited, and eventually the surgeons came out and they said, he's made it through. And to be honest, the next few minutes were just a bit of a blur. I don't remember what they said. But they walked away, and I remember calling after the surgeon and just saying, well, what about the bleeding? What about the bleeding? And he turned around and he looked at me, and I'll never forget the look on his face. He just looked bemused, I think. And he just looked me in the eye and he said, he didn't bleed. And I remember being acutely aware in that moment for the first time, just acutely aware that this is real. This is completely real. That God is real, and he is everything he says he is in the Bible, that what is impossible with man is possible with God. He is the God of the impossible, and that he can do more than we can even ask or imagine. He is those things, and that he is compassionate, and that he cares, and that he is with us in everything. He was with me in that toilet cubicle in the middle of the night, and that he hears our cries and all the things it says in the Bible that he is. I knew in my heart in that moment that he is. And that changed my faith and my hope forever. And that's not to say that we've not been through that again. We have been through that several times since, in different ways, with my dad. But in all those occasions, I haven't had to hide in a toilet and desperate and fearful, but I've been able to pray with such a deep faith and hope that God is real, and that he can intervene and he can do what he wants. Things that we can't even imagine. And so for the next few years, we've been through all sorts of situations with my dad, with our health in my own family, with other situations, not just health situations. And we have been able to pray. I've been able to pray with such a deep faith, with such a hope, a knowledge, a certainty that God is real, and that changes everything. You don't have to be fearful. And so, when life is tough, which it is, when things are confusing or scary or uncertain, or you're full of doubt, which, I am still sometimes, I just have this underpinning confidence, this absolute certainty now that God is real, and that he is everything that the Bible says he is, and that hope, that faith is so much stronger than my doubts and my fears, and that honestly gets us through the whole situation. So when we were thinking about which story to tell, I sat with my family at the table and we were trying to decide which story would convey where this hope came from, and we came up with so many stories. What about this one? What about this one? And honestly, I could sit here for hours telling you stories about how God has intervened, how he has done the impossible in our family. And we are incredibly grateful. But that one moment, that was the moment where I know my real hope for every circumstance, my certainty in God came from. And that's what gets us through, and that's what gives me incredible peace in every situation.